Lasting agreements cannot be reached without trust, respect, and communication, all of which are missing in a broken relationship. So how do we make a deal when the parties hate each other? Well, it's something that we deal with all the time as divorce lawyers, and I'm going to share in this video the secrets that I've learned in making peace when people hate each other. My name is Christopher Melcher. I'm a California attorney, and I specialize in high-stakes divorce litigation. And this is a series of videos by the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers on how to improve our persuasiveness through learning these communication techniques. After looking back at many years of negotiations, I identified factors that help us solve cases that seem like they would never settle. And to my surprise, I saw that Aristotle had identified some of these 2,000 years ago, and they work just as well now. To make an agreement requires two reasonable people represented by two reasonable lawyers. What are the chances of that? And it's easy for us to focus on how unreasonable the other side is, or even how unreasonable our own client is. But first, we should be looking at ourselves. We often forget as attorneys that our capacity to make a dispute worse is the same as our ability to resolve it. It just depends on how we act. Because we understand the litigation process so well, we often go into problem-solving mode and start giving advice before people are ready to hear it. And this brings us to a lesson from Aristotle that people are not going to listen to our truths or logic until we've made an emotional connection with them, meaning that we've spent the time to understand, listen to them, and establish credibility with them before they're going to listen to anything we have to say. We need to establish what he called was ethos, which is our credibility as a speaker, that we have intentions that are good to resolve this dispute. We have the capacity or capabilities to do this as lawyers, and that we are going to take the time to understand the other side. We have to establish that first before we start diving in and start telling them all the great truths that we have to share with them. If our client's goal is settlement, we have to act consistent with that. We should be looking at how our actions are either contributing to settlement or frustrating it. We should be asking about the words that we're using in emails or meetings, phone conversations, whether those are going to add fuel to the fire or promote settlement. And once we have our mindset right, we can then start looking at our own client, the other party, and opposing counsel. The parties typically do not trust each other, and sometimes for good reason. There may have been infidelity or abuse, and they need to move beyond that before they're ready to settle. We can't just expect them to put all those problems aside and then just dive right into a settlement conference. We're going to have to do a little bit of work before they're ready for it. Now, there's other folks who just have a need for conflict. They actually feed off of it and don't want to settle a case. That can come from mental health or substance abuse problem, and these are the most difficult ones to resolve. And other folks just may have unrealistic expectations. We often use litigation as a threat to compel people into a settlement because they're worried that they're going to do worse in court. But settlement is a consensual process. And certainly there has to be a consequence to not settling, but we're not going to get to a meaningful or lasting deal if it was coerced. There's a better way. Rather than attacking the symptoms of the problem, like we often do, in saying, well, what custody plan do you want, or what property do you want, or how much support do you want, we should be looking at the source of the problem first. What's keeping these folks from settling their case is often not about dollars and cents or time with the children. They're fundamental or underlying problems with their relationship that they cannot move beyond to even talk sensibly about these issues. And if we can build enough trust, respect, and communication, we'll be on our road to settlement. And this is what Aristotle called pathos, which is our ability to emotionally connect with the other side, to understand the block that's keeping them from settlement. And once we see it, we can then address it, and then the floodgate really opens towards settlement. So how do we do that? Well, first, I'm going to look at trust and restoring enough of it so we can make a deal. I use financial disclosures as a way to build trust. We have to do it anyway in a divorce, and if we take this seriously and do it early in the case, it is a great way of showing the other side this negotiation is going to be balanced, that we're going to deal with equal information, that there's not going to be anyone trying to take advantage of each other. I'm seeing some practitioners delay the disclosures or not taking them serious. That's a missed opportunity, because the other side is probably thinking, especially if they're the out spouse, that they're not going to be told the truth on the financial disclosures. And if we come in early with a complete and accurate disclosure, it's refreshing. And now the other side is saying, well, wow, okay, I'm being told things that I didn't even know about, or I'm surprised that they're revealing things that I thought they were going to hide. And now we're setting the stage for settlement. Honesty is refreshing. And conversely, when we botch the disclosures, it only reinforces the negative views that the other side already had about our client. The next part that I work on is respect. And respect is earned through listening. And I'm trying to do a lot more of that than talking. And it's hard. Conflict cannot be resolved without understanding what the other side wants and why they want it. Allowing the other side to express those things makes them feel heard, and then maybe they'll listen to what we want. Some clients have been upset with me for listening to the other side, feeling I'm disloyal, or why am I paying you to listen to their concerns? Well, this is a good opportunity to educate the client about the plan. Because if the idea is to get a settlement, we're not going to just go and impress that on the other side. We're going to have to spend some time listening and developing rapport. So it's important to explain to the client this is part of that process, and that the little time that we're going to spend on it is going to pay big dividends later on. And then finally, we have to work on communication skills. Very easy to send communications, but often we send the wrong message. We have to choose our words carefully and pay attention to tone. It is very difficult to resist the urge to blast the other side and tell them how they're wrong and all the horrible things that they've done to our client, but that does not contribute towards settlement. It contributes towards the conflict. So I avoid those accusations and instead come into early conversations with the other side asking, what do you need? What is your timing? How do you see this going? And asking those open-ended questions surprise the other side, because they're preparing to have this conversation that they think is going to be hostile, aggressive, that I'm going to be dictating things. And when I go in the opposite direction and saying, hey, I want to know what you want from me and how I can serve you, it then sets the stage for a much better relationship with opposing counsel that they're going to then report back to their client, and hopefully we start calming the hostilities. I also model this behavior for my clients, particularly in the early stages of a breakup, by telling them that the trust, communication, and respect that they still have with their partner is gold to them, that they're going to need to make a deal. So being very careful about statements and text messages that they're sending to the other side so that we don't have to repair that damage later on. Following these steps sets the table for agreement. So now that we've built some credibility with the other side, they like us because we've spent time listening to them, we actually understand what they want and why they want it, we can now start applying common sense and saying, hey, we could divide up things in this particular way, and they're more open and receptive to that. And it gives our client then an advantage to get the deal that our client wants, because we spent the time to build this foundation with the other side. Addressing the roadblocks that lie in the way of resolution is much more effective than trying to deal with the immediate issues that confront us in a divorce case. Listening to the other side, treating them with respect, and being honest with them reduces the temperature of these disputes and allows us to be effective advocates for our client. I hope you got use out of this video, and you'll watch the rest in the series from the AAML Communications Initiative. Thanks.